Hey everyone, it's Kevin, and in this video, I'm going to tell you how to stop eating compulsively. If you want to control what you eat and control your body, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video, and don't forget to check out my free 7-day challenge, Stop Overeating in 7 Days. If you're overeating, binge eating, or you want more control over what you eat, then click the link in the description box. And if you want to speak with me directly, there is also a link in the description box. Compulsive overeating. This is a big problem because if you have weight loss goals or health goals, then you need to be able to control what you eat, and you need to be able to control what you do with these things. If you don't, it's going to be really hard. Eating compulsively means you're eating unplanned meals and you're eating outside of your recommended calories, or you're not eating according to the plan, or you're eating stuff that you know you shouldn't be eating, or you're eating more than what you know you should be eating. So in this video, I'm going to give you some practical tips on how to stop doing that. The first thing is you need to understand the habit loop. There's a cue, there's a craving, there's a response, and then there's the reward. Let's talk about the first part, the cue and the craving. When you get a cue, that's when you start the habit loop. Something, some external stimulus, maybe even a thought a lot of times, compels you to take action. And then you feel motivated, and then you get that anxiety, you feel agitated, you can't focus, and you really want to do this because you have that craving, and that craving is kind of like a pebble in your shoe. It's there, and you know it, and you want to get rid of it. And that's why a lot of people have trouble overcoming addictions, and they have trouble controlling what they eat, or they have trouble not consuming pornography, or they have trouble controlling their habits because they get this cue and then they get this irresistible craving to do something that they don't want to do. The thing you need to understand about cues and cravings is you can't always control the cue. Unless you change your environment, unless you move somewhere or get a new job or whatever, or you just rearrange your house, it's really hard to control the cues, but it's not impossible. Cravings are outside of your control. Once you have cravings, it's kind of hard to get rid of them. They can die over time with practice, but ultimately you don't have control over the cravings. Now the third part is the response, and this is where you do have control. Because if you can control the response to your craving, then that craving tends to die over time, and that's really your only option. Now the second thing is, where is this craving coming from and why? Well, cravings originate in our brains, and cravings come from our brains because it wants us to do something, and that's how the brain makes us do things. It creates uncomfortable feelings, it creates pain, it creates certain sensations, it creates these cravings. And a lot of times when we do something, like when we overeat, binge eat, whatever, we're doing it because we're trying to get rid of the craving. Just keep in mind that cravings themselves can't make you do anything. What you need to do is be able to tolerate these cravings and understand what they are and where they're coming from. Cravings aren't necessarily a bad thing. They're designed to make us do something, and a lot of times they make us do something that we need to do. Maybe we really are hungry, and that craving makes us eat, and that's good. Or maybe we get really thirsty, and that thirst drives us to drink water. The problem is a lot of times, especially in the modern environment that we live in, these cravings go haywire, and they make us do things or consume things that we know we shouldn't do, but our brain thinks it really needs that substance, or it needs a vast quantity of that substance, and that's why we end up eating compulsively. The best way to deal with this, and this is point 3, is to recognize the craving and then absorb it. When I mean absorb it, you feel it, okay? You have that craving, you have that thought. The best thing to do a lot of times is to do nothing. And I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, because for a long time I thought the answer was to distract myself. I'll read a news website, I'll read a blog, I'll watch a YouTube video, I'll do something else, but it never worked. What I started to do instead was I just started to accept it. You know, I just sat there and I just felt that craving over time. And now the first few times I did this, I ended up succumbing because I wanted to get rid of the craving, but over time I got better. And I still do this today. I get a craving to check my phone, or I get a craving to check email. I get a craving to do something. Sometimes it's not, a lot of times, it's not always detrimental, but it is a craving. And a lot of times I just want to experience it and absorb it. And I recommend that you do the same. My next tip for you is connect with your hunger. Are you really hungry? If so, good, proceed forward. If you're not, don't proceed forward. It's really as simple as that. That's what healthy eating, empowered eating really is. It's eating based off of hunger, at least most of the time. But I encourage you to really connect with your hunger. This is why intermittent fasting is a good tool. It's not the end all be all, you don't have to do it, but going 18, 20, 24 hours sometimes without food really reconnects you with that hunger. And you know what it's like to be hungry, and you know what it's like to satisfy that hunger. And that's okay, that's a good thing. You want to eat when you're hungry. That's the holy grail. We don't want to starve ourselves. We don't want to deprive ourselves, but we also don't want to overeat, and we don't want to eat compulsively. That's what we want to avoid. Compulsive eating is the exact opposite of what I call hunger-based eating. When you're eating based off of hunger, you're eating according to normal physiological cues. I encourage you after this video to not eat until you feel that hunger. And you know what it is. I can't really describe it, but you know what it feels like, right? It's just that natural physiological sensation that we have to refeed. Maybe our blood sugar is low, maybe our glycogen is low, whatever it is, but there's some response from our body, and I encourage you to just feel that the next time. The next thing I want to talk about is emotional triggers. This is really important because a lot of times when we eat, it's for some sort of emotion. Not always, and I want to make that clear. It's not always emotional eating, but a lot of times in my case, it was fear. I always had this fear that my life would be worse if I didn't satisfy the craving, if I didn't have a huge volume of food, if I didn't have, a mountain of ice cream and cookies, then my life would be somehow worse. That's not true, but that's the message I was getting. And so I just kept thinking to myself when I was debating, should I binge? Should I overeat? Should I binge? Should I overeat? The debate in my head was, what will my life be without it? If I don't do this, what am I going to do instead? What is my life going to be without that large volume of food? If I don't eat this, if I don't grab for that bag of chips, if I don't grab for that bag of cookies, what is my life going to be then? There was this fear, and I think that's how the brain makes us do things that we don't want to do, is it creates these uncomfortable emotions. For some people, it might be anxiety. Maybe it's stress at work. Maybe it's a breakup. Maybe it's just sheer boredom. Maybe it's sadness. It could be anything. There's so many emotions, and I'm not going to go through each emotion, but those emotions are designed to make us take action. And when we have these uncomfortable emotions, we try to get rid of them somehow, and we compulsively overeat. That's what we're talking about here. We reach into the bag of potato chips, we reach for the jar of cookies, we reach for the ice cream, and then we're on autopilot. And that's not where you want to be. You don't want to be on autopilot. You want to be in control at all times. Compulsive overeating is the exact opposite of controlled eating, of empowered eating, of healthy eating. When you're making empowered choices, you're in this cockpit, you're in control. Autopilot is the exact opposite. Autopilot is compulsive overeating. I recommend that you map out the process, and I encourage you to do this after the video. The next time you eat compulsively or overeat or binge eat, whatever, what is that cue? What is that craving? What is your response? And what is the reward? And start with the cue. What was that initial trigger? What was that thought? What were you thinking before? What were the events leading up to that? What happened before that? It's really important that you do this kind of analysis, really home in on the problem, home in on the start, home in on that initial event that started it. It's kind of like you're doing an investigation. Like, how did this all begin? What are the facts? Who were the suspects? What were the potential causes of this? We want to know why. After that, you want to describe the events that happened after that. So after that cue, what were the cravings? What were the feelings? What were you feeling? After that cue, you want to describe the feelings and the sensations and the cravings that you had. What were the events? What did you do? How did you respond to these cravings? And then after that, have a plan of action. What are you going to do next time? What are some alternative responses to this? If you prepare ahead of time, it's way easier to make a healthy, empowered choice than it is in the moment. So when you commit before you get the cue and the craving, it's much easier to make that choice than to just say, I'm going to have more willpower, or I'll make the healthy choice in the moment. Probably you're not going to do that. It's way easier to make a commitment when you don't have the craving than when you do have the craving. This is why resolutions often fail. I think one reason why resolutions fail is because people don't have a plan of action. If you're going to get this cue and you're going to have this craving, what's your alternative response? You can't just say, I'm going to make the better choice next time. It doesn't work like that. You have to prepare ahead of time. Be proactive, not reactive. Speaking of the moment, catch yourself in the moment. This is hard, but the next time you have that experience, or the next time you have that cue and then you have that craving, just catch yourself. What are you feeling and why? Where is this craving coming from? What am I craving? What is it telling me? In the moment, when you still have a choice between acting compulsively and doing nothing, just absorb the feelings, find yourself in that moment, and ask yourself, what do I want to do? What am I going to do? But what are my other options? What can I do? What is the healthier choice in the moment? And if I don't do it this time, what am I going to feel? Am I going to feel a feeling of victory, of accomplishment, or am I going to feel like I'm missing out? I think it's that fear of missing out that drives a lot of people to compulsively eat, because they're always thinking, what if I don't have that bag of chips, or what if I don't have the ice cream? Trust me, being on the other side, I can tell you your life is going to be infinitely better if you don't compulsively eat the chips or the ice cream. Trust me. Another thing I want you to do is start tracking. Start tracking these events, start tracking these episodes, track the cravings, track the cues. You really want to understand what's going on here. If all you're going to do is say, I'll do better next time, I'll have more self-control next time, it's not going to work. Never does. You need to start tracking these episodes, and you need to start tracking your progress. Make a spreadsheet. How many days in a row have you not acted compulsively? Or maybe create a spreadsheet, or just have a diary each day and do what I call an after action review. The Navy SEALs started this 30 or 40 years ago, and it works really well. If you did act compulsively today, if you ate compulsively, what happened and why? What are you going to do next time? How can you be better? Finally, and this is a more practical, down-the-earth tip, keep things out of reach. Make it easy to not act compulsively. When you're acting compulsively, it's because the environment is really easy, meaning the environment encourages compulsive behavior. Maybe you have multiple tabs on your screen, maybe you have too much music, maybe you have chocolate on the table, maybe you have too much food surrounding you, maybe it's too easy to act compulsively. Make some environmental modifications if you can. Keep things outside of reach, have designated areas for eating, have designated times for eating. Start setting boundaries for yourself. This isn't the ultimate tip, this isn't the ultimate answer, but it works. And when you make these small modifications, you can actually see massive changes in your behavior. I'll give you an example. I used to eat a lot while I was driving. It was a really bad habit, and it's not terrible, but it's still not a good habit because I was doing a lot of home care, so I was in the car a lot, and I would keep food on the front seat. And I realized that if I wanted to change that, all I had to do was put my snacks in the hatch where I couldn't reach them. And you know what? I stopped because you can't reach into the hatch while you're driving. It's simple things like that that can make a big difference. Do you compulsively overeat? And if you do, what do you compulsively overeat? And at what time of the day do you do it? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this video educational and entertaining. If you like this video, then I think you'll like some of the other videos that you see on the screen. Click one of them, and I'll see you there.